guys, it's Kylie here with Kylie's Canine Boot Camp, and today's video is very different from what I typically do. So with that being said, I do have a few disclaimers I need to put out there. First off, your discretion is advised. The images and video that are going to be within this video could be sensitive to some viewers, as it does contain what I believe to be animal cruelty. I will put times up on the screen to what you could skip to if you don't want to look at it, but I highly encourage you to look at the video for the first few seconds to see if you recognize her, so that we can get the dog the help that it needs. If you do recognize her and you know what area she lives in, please contact the local authorities of her area so we can get the dog the help that it needs. You can provide the evidence within this video to law enforcement so they know what's going on with this dog. If you do know her and you have a way to contact the owner, please do not contact her. It's just going to make the situation worse for the animal, and we don't want that whatsoever. Only contact the local law enforcement about this. Do not contact her, please. The purpose of this video is to go over the proper way she should have trained her dog instead of using these outdated and frankly cruel ways of training her dog. And it's also to hopefully have someone recognize her, or at least her dog, and find someone who knows where she is so that we can get the dog the help that it needs and get it out of the situation that it's currently in, because that is so bad for any dog to be in. Officer Paw Patrol will also be later on in this video. He's going to be going over the legalities of this, as in the eyes of the law, is it truly animal cruelty? Again, thank you so much, Officer Paw Patrol, for helping me out with this video. All of his socials will be linked in the description box below, so make sure you check him out. He truly does amazing work. With all that being said, we'll look at the first picture, the crate. If you don't want to look at it, the time is on the screen to skip to.
Owner says, why does Castiel have a small crate? When we first started Castiel's training, this is the cage that she started with. However, at the time it was much bigger to her than it is now. So why do I have a small crate? Why did I never upgrade to a bigger one? Well, that question can be easily answered. Castiel is horrible about potty manners in the crate. When we first started crate training her, we had a pillow or a bed in there. She would constantly piss in it until the bed or whatever she was laying on was heavy, and it stunk so bad. So we took it away. She finally quit using the bathroom for the first time, but then she continued to do it. Well, we found out it was because she didn't like being in it, and I'd get on to her for barking, so instead of barking, her way of rebelling was using the bathroom in the crate. She knew I would get her out if she pissed in it because I would have to clean it. So what did I start doing? I made her lay in it. I had to always give her baths, but it did work. She finally stopped using the bathroom in her crate, but then she started it again. So we made her lay in a smaller one. She couldn't use a bathroom in it because it was too small for her to stand up and do so. That was the permanent and final fix. She finally quit using the bathroom in her crate. Can she lay down? Yes, she can lay down, and she will lay on her side and sprawl her legs up against the sides. Is it uncomfortable? That's where it cuts off.
So when it comes to the crate, she is admitting that the crate is too small. She's not trying to deny that. Within a crate, a dog should be able to stand up, lay down, and turn around comfortably without having to risk injury by attempting to do it. She also took out all of the bedding in the crate, which is going to make it a very, very uncomfortable place to lay down. And she said the reason she took the bedding out was because her dog continuously peed in the crate or would go to the bathroom in the crate. This is also the reason she kept it in too small of a crate. She says it's because the dog would go to the bathroom in any size larger than the crate that it is in. If a crate is too big, a dog is more likely to go to the bathroom in the crate, especially if it is not properly crate trained or potty trained. It's mostly just because they know that they can go to the bathroom and still lay down without having to lay in it. So the best thing to do in those situations would be making sure that you put your dog in the proper size crate, but you still can't give it something too small. If you do put a dog in a crate that is too small, it could result in serious or long-term injury / damage. She describes her dog's behavior as the dog rebelling. I don't see it that way. To me, it seems like the dog is most likely trying to get attention or just wasn't properly crate trained / potty trained. I'm going to say most likely it was not crate trained properly, since she says herself that her dog doesn't like being in the crate. Before I would have done any training with this dog, I would have taken it to a vet to make sure there is no medical issue going on, making it to where the dog could not hold its bladder. It's especially common in female dogs from my experience. They are more likely to have issues withholding their bladder due to medical issues or medical conditions. So I would have definitely gotten to a vet, gotten all of that checked, and once that was cleared, that's when I would have worked with the training aspect of it. What she should have done was completely restarted crate training with this dog. The dog, according to her, did not like the crate. A dog should love the crate. It should be a happy and safe place for the dog to go. When you introduce the crate properly and crate train properly, the crate will become their safe place in their den like they would do in the wild. I think this dog would have needed a lot more time to become reaccustomed to a crate being a positive place, since it already has such a negative feeling towards being in the crate. So a lot of desensitization, a lot of fun things happening in the crate. You could do things like throwing a toy in, having them play fetch with the crate door open, having them go in, giving them a treat for going in, things like that that make the crate a happy place. I have a whole video on crate training if you're interested in that, going over the proper way to crate train. And I would have done that with this dog. I also would have taken it outside to let it go potty before putting it in the crate to help prevent it from going inside of the crate. Also making sure that the dog got plenty of exercise before being put in the crate, especially if it was going to be for a longer period of time, so that it didn't feel like it was just in a ball of energy and had to go, which could really upset a dog if they have a bunch of energy and you're just throwing them in a crate where they can't do anything. She mentioned that when her dog used to bark in the crate, she would correct it or get onto it for it. That was a huge mistake in crate training. You never ever interact with the dog when it is making noise. That includes correcting it. You do want to make sure that it doesn't need food, water, or it doesn't need to go to the bathroom, and if all of the needs are out of the way, at that point I would rule it as the dog most likely is just trying to get attention so that it can get out. You want to ignore a dog that's making noise in the crate when it's first learning how to be in the crate. The reason for this is because if you give them any sort of attention, you're giving them what you want, whether it be negative or positive. If you just wait for them to be quiet for a little bit and then let them out, they'll start associating, hey, if I'm quiet in the crate, I'll get out. That's all you have to do. Crate training is not that hard if you do it properly. If you don't crate train properly, things like this happen where the dog is not comfortable in the crate. It's going to do some weird things, some crazy things that you just don't want to deal with. But if you start out properly crate training, you're never going to have these issues in the first place. I'd also recommend, if she's having that many problems with keeping her dog in the crate, that she went and got a bed that had a protective cover on it for her dog, so it didn't have to have the bedding taken away. They're pretty easy to find. You can find them anywhere, and if you can't find them for whatever reason, you could always just buy a mattress cover for a children's mattress and put it over the dog's bed. That way all you have to do is wipe it off and that's it. I would not have taken the dog's bedding away. There's so many other options that you could do, like just finding something that you can put over top of it that just wipes away and you don't have to worry about it smelling terrible or absorbing the urine. Now we'll go over the next picture. Again, if you don't want to see it, there's a time somewhere on the screen that you can skip to so that you don't have to look at it.
Honor writes, okay, before someone comments abuse, I made her a type of comfort mask out of a sock. It is a smidge snug, but that's only because I think that's what helps her. It also keeps her mouth closed so she doesn't drool quite as much. She didn't hyperventilate nearly as much this time as she normally does. She didn't drool quite as much either. I did listen to her breathing to make sure she wasn't choking, and there is a hole cut so that she can breathe out of her nose, and I can make sure that she's not drooling out of her nose. She was even comfortable enough to actually lay down this time, which she never does.
So let's go over the idea of a comfort mask for a dog. Most dogs would not appreciate something covering their eyes when they have anxiety already. That would most likely just bring up more anxiety because they cannot see what's going on around them. With an anxious dog, you really want them to be able to see what's going on so they feel more comfortable. If you really feel like your dog needs something put on them for comfort, I would highly recommend the comfort body suits that they make for dogs. I've heard a lot of good things on it. I don't know for sure. I don't use it myself, but if you really need it, then go ahead and buy that. She also says that she was checking her dog's breathing to make sure she wasn't joking, which I think she meant choking. I would think this is because it was going over the dog's throat and it may have kind of cut off the dog's ability to breathe if it was too tight, and maybe that's why she checked on it. I'm really not sure, but if you really feel like you have to check your dog's breathing when putting something on it, the safest bet would be just don't put it on your dog. Another point I would bring up is the way that this is on the dog's nose. It kind of looks like one of those muzzles that they use at the vet. The reason they use those at the vet is because it's for short-term use. It's just for while the vet is in there for, you know, a good 3-4 minutes, and then once they're out, you can take it off. This is not for long-term use. You cannot put a muzzle like that on a dog for a long period of time, especially one that's feeling anxious, where they feel like they may need to breathe heavier, because they can't pant, so they can't regulate their temperature like they usually would, and that can become very dangerous very fast. It would probably get very, very hot in there, and again, the dog can't pant to kind of let that out. It's now stuck with just trying to breathe through its nose, even though it's probably getting pretty hot in there. On top of it, it is a long-haired breed, so think about how hot that would have been, and it has no way to try to feel a little bit less hot. Now, I don't know what type of anxiety this dog has. I don't know if it's separation anxiety, what the dog has anxiety towards. I don't know, so I can't say anything on that. I can't give her advice on how she should have handled the anxiety aspect of this, because I don't know what kind of anxiety this dog has, but this was not the way to go about it. On top of that, she did get an Aussie. They are very, very anxious breeds in my experience. They need a lot of confidence building from a young age. They are not the absolute best for inexperienced handlers that can't cope with a dog that may have issues with being fearful. Let's also not forget, this dog is supposed to be a service dog, or at least a service dog in training. If it has that much anxiety, it most likely would not work out. Putting a dog in public situations with the anxiety levels that she seems to have, based on what the owner wrote, would just make the symptoms worse for the dog. It would have made everything worse for the dog. Would have made the dog even less mentally stable than this dog already is. So I just wouldn't put it in that kind of situation where it has to feel so afraid all the time by making it a service dog. So lastly, I'm going to show you guys the video again. Please watch the first few seconds if you can. There's nothing bad happening in those first few seconds, just to see if you recognize her. But once you watch those first few seconds, you can just skip to the time that's put on the screen.
How to properly get on to dogs who have done something wrong. Okay, now I see a lot of people who just randomly call their dogs when they're in trouble. No, do not call your dogs when they're in trouble, or they will start running from you because they're afraid of you. Because they assume when you're calling them, no matter how sweet your words are, you are intending to beat their ass. Catch them. Pick them up, catch them. And shove whatever they did wrong in their face. If they pissed or shit on the floor, you shove their face into it and then beat their ass. But never call your dog to you. Castiel, what is this? Did you chew up one of my pacifiers? Do you see what you did? Castiel, what did you do? Do you see this? Do you see this? Look at what you did. You're a bad dog. Bad dog. Very bad dog. You make eye contact. You make it very apparent of what they did wrong. You don't let them pull away. Castiel, you make eye contact. What did you do? You make it apparent. You keep it in their face. What did you do? No. What did you do? And then you pop them. Bad dog. And then you let them run away. And you wait a few minutes. You do something. Doesn't matter. Just 5-6 minutes. Just do whatever. And then call your dog back out to you. Castiel, come here. Castiel. Castiel. Come here. Come here. I know. You were in trouble. I know. Come here. Yeah. Hi. Come here. Now, I called her early instead of waiting a few minutes because I had already gotten onto her for it.
It was an overcorrection overcorrection to say the least. Even if that was the first time she was punishing the dog for chewing on something it wasn't supposed to, that still would have been an overcorrection. She smacked it 7 times, but the fact that she said she already disciplined the dog for this, that is just a major overcorrection. It was completely unnecessary. There was no point to it. And on top of it, the dog would have no clue why it was getting in trouble. Dogs do not comprehend the way that we do. They don't understand why you're hitting them, even if you're shoving it in their face like she did, saying, "Why did you do this? Look at what you did. Why did you do it?" The dogs, one, don't understand English, so even though you're saying this, they're not saying like, "Oh yeah, I did that." They're just thinking, "Why are you yelling at me?" She's also holding the dog's face like inches away from hers, staring it down and screaming at it. In the dog world, that's just plain bullying. That's intimidation. All you're doing is bullying your dog. There's no point to it. Please do not do that to your dog in any situation. It's also a very good way to get bit if you do it to the wrong dog, which is most dogs. She also says that she doesn't call her dog over before disciplining it because it's going to cause fear in the dog. Every time you call the dog's going to be scared to come to you, but despite that, this dog's still going to be afraid of you. It's going to be afraid every time someone raises their voice, every time someone walks towards them in a way that they find intimidating, every time someone gets in their face, which includes children. Children do it all the time to dogs, and a dog should be able to handle that, but when you treat them like this, they're not going to be able to handle that because they have such trauma surrounding people being in their face. So sure, the dog could become afraid of coming to you, but this dog is just going to be afraid of you in general. It's going to be afraid of everyone that is just the slightest bit sketchy in this dog's mind, which you really don't know what that could be because this dog has been through so much trauma that even the slightest thing could be so scary to it that it could lash out in even an aggressive way. That's a huge thing that people don't seem to understand. Dogs can also get a form of PTSD. I call it canine PTSD, and basically what it is they went through all of these traumas that it affects their daily life, just like it would with a human who went through anything similar to what this dog went through. I'd also like to bring up, if you do want to correct a dog for a bad behavior, you have to catch the dog in the act. You cannot catch them 5-10 minutes later and then discipline them after you've seen what they've done. They're not going to comprehend why they're getting in trouble. The best way to correct a dog for a bad behavior is catching them in the act and correcting them right then and there as they're doing whatever the bad behavior is. Doing it 10 minutes later is going to do absolutely nothing. The dog is not going to understand that. You're just going to make it harder on the dog, and they're just going to become so afraid of you because they don't know why they just got corrected. Even if you don't correct this way, they still could become afraid of you. It's less likely if you're doing it the proper way, but they're still not going to comprehend it, still not going to fix any issue. So you need to correct a dog in the moment, not 5-10 minutes later, and who knows how long after this was. Who knows how long after the first time was. Some people had brought up that had seen this video, oh, but the dog's not yelping, it's not showing obvious signs of pain that they know of. This dog was terrified. It was absolutely frozen. I barely saw it move at all throughout the video when she was holding it. It was a freezer. Fight, flight, or freeze, and this dog chose freeze. Its eyes were huge, its ears were kind of laid back. It was just it was so frozen because it didn't know what to do. It was that terrified of her because the dog knew what was coming. On top of that, most of the time a yelp is coming from an unexpected and sharp pain. Like if you accidentally step on your dog, you're not as likely to get a yelp in that moment if the dog expects the pain to come to it, or if the pain was not a very, very sharp pain. You may hear a yelp if a dog puts weight on a broken leg, but that's because in that moment they didn't expect that. Less likely to hear it in a moment where the dog was expecting the pain, or if it was a moment where the pain was a solid smack instead of like a sharp someone stepping on your foot. After this dog was hit, it was so frozen during the moment, but the second it had the opportunity, it ran. And when she tried to call it back, she had to call it multiple times and try to really suck up to her dog to get it to come back, which is how a lot of human abusers will treat whoever the victim is. And that's exactly how this dog is being treated. Is they're getting hit, they're getting beat on, and then they're just brought back in with manipulation, and the dog just wanted to be loved. Some people seem to forget that dogs aren't humans, and even though I'm making these comparisons, I'm doing that so you understand a little bit more. Dogs are way more forgiving than humans ever will be. They don't usually hold a grudge against anyone. They are so much more forgiving than we are, and all this dog wanted to do was be happy and be loved, and since she was using such a happy and loving voice, the dog was like, oh, I'm gonna get love. This is a good moment. This is a good thing. And that's probably the saddest part to me, is like, despite everything she's putting this dog through, the dog still doesn't care. It still just wants to love. It still just wants to feel loved. It still just wants to be happy, and that's like the epitome of dogs. No matter what you put them through, they'll always be right there anyways, no matter how much you hurt them. And that's what this dog is experiencing right here. It's just experiencing all of this negativity that she's making it go through, but it doesn't care in the moment that it's going to get love and happiness because that's all it wants. Again, this dog is supposed to be a service dog, and with everything it has gone through, and it probably still is going through, the chances of it working out as a service dog are completely annihilated if they were ever there. So with this dog, I would highly expect this dog to be extremely fearful in public of any loud noise, anyone running, anyone yelling. Even if it's a happy yell, I could see this dog being very fearful of any kind of noise like that. People have said that this dog is 6 months old. That is unconfirmed, but if it is, the amount of damage it's already gone through mentally, it's just going to need a very, very loving home that's willing to put the work in and consult with a behaviorist to help this dog live a happy life and feel more relaxed in a new home, because it's not going to be a very relaxed dog ever. It's also an Aussie, and as I said, they're already prone to being so fearful and anxious, in my opinion, that the second if I were to get an Aussie, the second I got them, I would be working on confidence building and making sure they were a very confident dog. But this dog is going to need so much confidence building to ever be a normal pet level. It's never going to be like, oh, it's in a new home, it's perfectly fine now. It's going to need so much work put into this dog to help it to feel more relaxed, to help it to feel like nothing's going to hurt it again. Because even though dogs are so forgiving, there's still that trauma and they still went through it, so they're still going to have side effects to the trauma. If the dog stays in her care and she takes this dog out in public, one of the most common reasons I find dogs to be aggressive is typically the dog is very, very fearful, or very much so lacks in confidence, that it feels like it has to snap at people to protect itself, even in moments where it doesn't need to protect itself. So let's say a kid came up to this dog, there's a good chance this dog could bite that kid. There's just so many things that could go wrong here. With this kind of trauma, this dog is going to have so many issues trying to integrate into any sort of public situation, and it's really upsetting because this dog, maybe it did have potential. I really don't know. Again, I've never interacted with this dog. I don't know this dog very well. I just know based on what's going on, there's a lot of things that this dog could have huge issues with in the future if it doesn't already have those issues. If this kind of lifestyle continues with this dog, it may become reactive to even the tiniest of noises. Not just like loud people or trucks going by, not just like super loud, typically scary noises anyways. This dog could be afraid of even the slightest noise, the slightest fast movement, a dog coming towards it, a child coming towards it, just an adult person coming towards it. It could be afraid of so many things, and it most likely will be if this kind of lifestyle continues for this dog. I would highly expect this dog to have canine PTSD, partly because the breed is already so prone to being so sensitive, and then you add on trauma to that. There's just so much that this dog is going to need help with in the future. This Castiel, the dog, seems like she just wants to be loved, and she seems like she is such a sweet soul based on what I have seen. And to know that her mental stability has been taken from her, that is the toughest part. I work with shelter dogs. You guys know I work with shelter dogs. That is what I'm mostly training with, and I've seen this a million times. The dog is such a sweet, sweet dog, but because of what it's been through, it doesn't know how to trust anyone. And because of that, it's labeled as a bad dog. It's labeled as a mean dog. It's labeled as an aggressive dog. And this could very well be the future for this dog. And if these traumas do result in aggression, this dog may be put down for something it couldn't help because it had been shown nothing to prove that humans are trustworthy. Even though it does seem like a loving dog and a calm dog, it may still be one of those dogs that's going to be forgiving forever, and maybe it will never bite. Its chances of biting have become so much higher than any other dog because it's been through so much and it has no reason to trust anyone. So, with all that being said, in conclusion, in my opinion, I cannot speak on if this dog was ever really going to be a service dog, even with the proper training. I cannot speak on if this girl even needs a service dog. This is not me fake spotting her. I don't know how this dog behaves, so I couldn't tell you if the dog is a fake service dog. What I can tell you is it's in a terrible situation, and it needs help as soon as possible. It needs to get out of the situation as soon as possible, and it needs to have a behaviorist there and a trainer there who can show it the proper way of training, who can show it that it's never going to be hurt again, and who can show it that they can trust again. So I think I said everything that I needed to say, so let's move on to Officer Paw Patrol and what he has to say about the legalities of this. He's basically just going over, is this animal cruelty in the eyes of the law?
Okay. Well, thank you for doing this again. I know, like you have a really busy life, like being an animal control officer and then doing your own channel, then all of your animals. I'm sure, like, it's constantly hectic on your end. But when it comes to this case, it is considered animal cruelty in your professional opinion?
Yeah, my professional opinion, it absolutely would be cruelty. The main reason isn't so much like necessarily like the picture, and you can probably do like a cutaway to show it better. But all right, a dog in a small crate, that's one thing, but it's the reasoning as to why. So the owner's rationale is pretty much, from what I'm gathering, it's just due to punishment alone. She's saying that the dog was going to the bathroom when there was a dog bed in the crate, so she took the dog bed out. Then if it was in a larger crate, it would still go to the bathroom. So her solution is just to put the dog in a small crate, and then that's it. And it seems like the dog, at least according to the owner's rationale, the dog had to pretty much just learn for itself not to go to the bathroom in the crate. Otherwise, it was going to be forced to be in its own feces and urine. And that's where you get into like adequate care for animals and being subjected to unsanitary living conditions. So absolutely, as far as that goes, I would consider it animal cruelty. I printed out the Alabama statute that I believe would cover this. And it says, a person commits the crime of cruelty to animals if he or she intentionally or recklessly subjects an animal to any cruel mistreatment or subjects an animal to his in his custody or cruel neglect. And then pretty much, I guess, all right, that's up for interpretation. What is cruelty or neglect? But it goes on to say overloads, overdrives, deprives of necessary sustenance or shelter. I would say depriving the animal of necessary sustenance if it's going to be kept in the crate like that.
Okay, and when it comes to the sock, would there be any sort of legal background on that when it's putting the sock over its face?
That one's hard. I think any rational person can look at that and go, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that to your dog, especially if your dog already has anxiety to begin with.
Right.
That's more your area of expertise as a trainer.
Right.
But the problem with animal cruelty laws right now is they only look at physical cruelty. They haven't really caught up on the psychological cruelty aspect of it yet. What's that doing to the dog psychologically and mentally? And that's the issue that I think a lot of people would have on, a personal level. Professionally, I don't know if there's a whole lot you could do just by putting the sock over the dog's face. In Michigan, I would pursue it. The reason I would pursue it is because our adequate care statute here in Michigan says that you must provide the animal with sufficient food, water, shelter, sanitary conditions, exercise, veterinary medical attention to maintain the animal in a good state of health and well-being. And I think you could argue well-being as far as emotional abuse or psychological abuse to the animal. But that one's tough.
Right. Yeah. In the video, it does show her hitting the dog. Is there anything you could do there? Because I know the dog, it's not yiping. There's no physical signs that the animal is actually being hurt, even though we all know like that did not feel good for the dog, especially with it being on the snout. Legally, would there be anything that you could do there?
I think so if you add up like the totality of the circumstances. That's a term that we use
Mm-hmm.
a lot in criminal justice and in law enforcement is if you count like A, B, C, and D, A alone isn't necessarily a crime, B alone isn't necessarily a crime, but when you add A, B, C, and D together, then it adds up into a crime. So I think in that case, absolutely. We already have a history, and the owners admitted that the dog is being kept in an unsanitary small crate
Mm-hmm.
with no bedding. Then she's going to put a sock on the dog's face, and then on top of that, she's going to be hitting the dog. Even if the hitting or the tapping or striking the dog isn't causing physical injury, I would say if you add it all up together, you could argue that that's absolutely animal cruelty.
Right. And she did state in the video that she had already corrected the dog by hitting it before she did it in the video, and that's why she was easier on it. Would that add to that at all?
Um, I would say if anything, it would hurt your case. You already addressed the issue once. You disciplined the dog for an issue once, and now you're just showing again that this is how you discipline your dog when the dog did not do anything to merit that particular incident. I look at it just from a personal dog owner standpoint. If I was going to discipline my dog for anything, you do it right then and there when the dog misbehaved. You don't wait an hour or a day or however long later. The dogs don't have cognitive thinking abilities to understand why it's happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that absolutely adds to it.
Yeah.
So if this lady does continue to do this, what I would hope happens is eventually this is going to catch up with her if we can't track her down, through our platforms.
Yeah, and part of the hope is that someone will recognize her or the dog and be
Right.
able to be like, I know a location that she's been multiple times, or I do know her, and are able to show local ACOs or law enforcement, whoever they have in the area, the video and the evidence to be like, hey, this is what she's doing. Something needs to happen here.
Yeah.
And that's just the hope for me, at least. What do you think the consequences would be if she were convicted? Do you think the animal would be taken away permanently with no chance of her getting the animal back? What kind of fines are you thinking would go on there?
So the one thing I didn't look up is what the maximum penalty is for Alabama. I know it's animal cruelty is a misdemeanor in Alabama. It's not a felony, which is a whole nother story that you don't want to get me going on. Generally though, if somebody's convicted of animal cruelty, misdemeanor or felony level, the first thing that happens is the dog or the animal's always removed from their home. It'll be removed pending court proceedings normally, but then once the conviction actually happens, it'll be court ordered that the animal's not allowed to go back to them. As far as jail time, and I've touched on this on my channel a lot of times too, people don't normally do a whole lot of jail time for animal cruelty. It's because they're considered property crimes. They're not crimes against people. But yeah, she would be definitely facing some fines also, and I'm trying to look it up as I'm talking here. All right, so here you go. In Alabama, where we believe this took place, a Class A misdemeanor is punishable up to a $6,000 fine with 1 year jail time. So, yeah, she'd be definitely facing some fines. I don't necessarily think she'd be doing any jail time, but she would lose her animal, and that's more important than anything.
Yeah, and I know in some cases they're still allowed to get other animals. They just can't have that one. Do you think this would be the case here?
It's possible. A lot of times that falls on like a probation officer or terms of probation after someone's convicted. Normally what I've seen and I've come to accept it is they're not allowed to receive that animal back that was a victim of their crime. And if they are allowed to have any other animals, part of their probation terms is that an animal control officer, animal cruelty investigator is allowed to go show up at their house and do inspections at any given time. And then if they refuse and they're in violation of their probation, then they can get those animals taken away. Then they go to jail.
Okay. Yeah. That's a lot of
it's
information.
hard because animals are property.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that because I don't consider my animals property. I know you don't
Right.
consider yours property.
Right.
But in the eyes of statutes, they're considered property. So a lot of rights that you or I would have as a victim of a crime as a person, animals aren't afforded those same rights. So that's the unfortunate side of that.
I think that is everything. Again, thank you so much, Officer Paw Patrol, for doing this video with me. and helping me out with this video. It means so much to me. You guys should definitely go check him out. He is absolutely amazing, and everything that he does, all of his socials will be linked down below in the description box. He's an animal control officer by day in his day-to-day life. He has his own pets. Definitely go check him out and support his channel and what he does. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. Again, the hopes to this is that we will find this owner and this dog and get this dog out of this situation. I hope you guys liked this video, found it informative at least. Hopefully I don't have to do any more videos like this, but if I have to, I absolutely will. I'm sure that there are things that I've left out of this video that I just didn't think to say while making this because there's just so much going on in this situation. You can message me on Instagram at KylieServiceK9. I will send you over the evidence if needed. If you do know where she's located and you need to show it to the law enforcement of that area, please message me on there. I will gladly send it over if it means getting this dog some help. I think that's everything for this video, so thank you guys for watching, and